Welcome back to the channel, soap fans. It is a wild Wednesday, and we have an absolute mountain of drama to unpack today. The gavel is about to drop, and the echo is going to shatter lives. We are standing on the precipice of a courtroom war where every single choice is a loaded gun, and the momentum has just violently swung out of control. Nobody walks away from this trial unscathed. I cannot believe they actually did that. I mean, my jaw physically dropped, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the sheer unadulterated stubbornness of Curtis Ashford. He rejected the plea deal. Are you kidding me right now? I have been watching this show religiously since 2015, and this has to be one of the most frustrating, self-destructive, agonizing choices a character has made in a long time. 2 years. They offered him a 2-year plea deal, and with good behavior, he could have been paroled in as little as 8 months. 8 months. In soap opera time, that is literally a long nap. But no. Curtis has to roll the dice and risk a massive, lengthy prison sentence by taking this to trial. I am half celebrating because the courtroom drama is going to be top-tier television, and half complaining because I just want to shake some sense into this man. And why is he doing it? Because of his ego and his absolute suffocating paranoia about Isaiah again. Curtis is terrified that if he goes to Pentonville, Isaiah is going to slide right into his life and take over the daddy spot with baby Desmond. Am I the only one who thinks this is completely unhinged? I mean, I get it. Portia and Isaiah are together now, and Isaiah is around the baby. But Curtis is acting like 8 months in lockup is going to completely erase his biological connection, so instead of taking a guaranteed short sentence, he is risking years and years away from his kid just to mark his territory like a wounded animal. It is infuriating, but at the same time, it is such a deeply human, flawed reaction that I can't look away. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to back up and look at the psychology here, because it actually makes a twisted kind of sense when you look at the history. Remember when Curtis found out Trina was his daughter, Portia lied to him for 20 years. 20 years. He missed her first steps, her first words, her entire childhood because of a lie. That kind of trauma doesn't just evaporate. It rewires your brain. So now Curtis has Desmond, a fresh start, a baby boy he can actually raise from day one. The thought of missing Desmond's first months of watching another man hold his infant son while he is sitting in a prison, it is triggering every single insecurity and trauma Portia ever inflicted on because of that history. Curtis is completely blinded by fear. He's making massive, life-altering decisions based on past wounds instead of future realities. And you know who sees right through this? Marshall and Stella. Aunt Stella and Marshall are literally the voice of the audience. They are watching Curtis gamble his entire future, and they are terrified. I love Stella so much. She has been the absolute anchor of this family, and you can see the sheer dread in her. They know that rolling the dice with a Port Charles jury is a fool's errand. Remember when they tried this kind of legal gamble with Sonny? Yeah, didn't work out so smoothly then either. And Sonny has a whole mob empire protecting him. Curtis is just a guy who let his temper destroy his life. Marshall just got back to town to meet his grandson, and now he has to watch his son potentially throw his freedom away. It is an absolute tragedy unfolding in slow motion. Okay, back to the point. The trial officially kicks off on August 5, and the atmosphere in that courtroom is going to be thick enough to cut with a you just know the gallery is going to be packed with everyone who has a stake in this. Portia is going to be sitting there torn between the father of her child and the man she is currently dating. Trina, who has officially decided to set boundaries and distance herself from her parents' endless drama, is going to be dragged right back into the emotional meat grinder. I feel so bad for Trina. She just wants to focus on her art and her high-stakes music showcase with Gio Pommery, and instead her dad is on trial for brutally assaulting her mom's new boyfriend. It is a spectacular mess, and I am absolutely here for every single second of then we have August 6th. Mark your calendars, because Isaiah Gannon is taking the witness stand, and it is going to be explosive. We cannot forget the actual stakes for Isaiah here. Curtis didn't just punch a guy in a bar fight. Curtis shattered Isaiah's hand. He destroyed the hands of a brilliant surgeon. Isaiah didn't just lose a fight. He lost his identity, his livelihood, his entire purpose in I know some people are loving this tough guy Curtis era and defending his actions as a protective father. But personally, I think what he did to Isaiah was unforgivable. Isaiah has every right to be furious. And he has explicitly stated that his goal is to nail Curtis to the wall, and he wants blood, and honestly kind of hard to blame him. But here is where the legal chess game gets fascinating. Curtis has Martin Gray as his defense attorney, and Martin is an absolute shark. I love Martin in the courtroom. He has that slick southern charm that disarms people right before he goes in for the kill. Martin knows that the only way to beat this assault charge, or at least mitigate it, is to prove undue provocation. He has to make the jury believe that Isaiah provoked Curtis to such an extreme degree that any reasonable father would have snapped. And how do you do that? You get the victim to lose his temper on the stand. I can already picture the scene. Martin packing back and forth, asking Isaiah incredibly invasive, condescending he is going to poke at every single insecurity Isaiah has. He is going to spin the narrative suggesting that Isaiah was intentionally overstepping his bounds, that he was trying to replace Curtis, that he was flaunting his relationship with Portia right in Curtis's. Martin is going to twist the knife regarding Isaiah's ruined career, maybe even subtly implying that Isaiah wasn't that great of a surgeon anyway, or that he's exaggerating the injury for a massive payout in his civil suit. It is going to be brutal, manipulative, and brilliant legal strategy, and Isaiah is going to take the bait. He is I am calling it right now. Isaiah is already a pressure cooker of resentment and grief over his hand. When Martin spins the conflict around on him, making him look like the aggressor who provoked a protective father, Isaiah is going to lose his cool. He is going to explode on that stand. He might start yelling. He might say something incredibly vindictive, and that is exactly what Martin wants. He wants the jury to see an angry, volatile man, making it easier for them to believe that Isaiah instigated the physical altercation. It is such a dirty trick, but it is exactly how trials are won in Port Charles. After that disaster of a testimony, Isaiah is going to need to vent, and who does he turn to? Elizabeth Baldwin and Lucas Jones. This is such an interesting dynamic. Liz and Lucas are both medical professionals, so they inherently understand the catastrophic loss of a surgeon's hand. Isaiah is going to complain to them, pouring out all his frustration about how Martin Gray twisted his words and made him look like the bad guy. Liz is always the compassionate sounding board, and Lucas knows a thing or two about dealing with trauma and unfair situations. I love seeing these characters interact outside of the hospital setting, but it also highlights how isolated Isaiah feels. He knows his testimony didn't go well, and he knows his quest for criminal justice might be slipping through his fingers. But even if Martin successfully makes Isaiah look bad, the decision is still ultimately in the hands of and let me tell you, juries in this town are wildly unpredictable. Sometimes they let mob bosses walk free, and sometimes they throw the book at someone for a minor infraction. Curtis is taking a massive, massive gamble. If the jury sees through Martin's theatrics, if they focus on the medical record showing Isaiah's permanently damaged hand, Curtis is going down. He's going to face a sentence way longer than those 8 months he scoffed at. And this brings me to the thing that genuinely terrified me while watching the latest episode. Curtis made a promise to baby Desmond. He looked at that sweet little infant and promised that no one is going to separate. Are you kidding me, writers? Have you ever watched a soap opera? You never make a promise like that. It is the ultimate kiss of death. The minute a character promises they will never leave or always be there, you might as well start packing their bags for Pentonville or ordering a headstone. I am literally dreading the outcome because of that one line. It feels so awfully ominous. It is a classic narrative setup for a devastating fall. Curtis is flying high on his pride, convinced that his righteous anger as a father will shield him from the he thinks, because he's fighting for his son. The universe will reward him. But the universe in Port Charles is cruel, and the writers love to torture us. By having Curtis make that solemn vow to a baby who can't even understand him, they are setting up the maximum amount of emotional devastation when the guilty verdict comes. Sometimes I contradict myself because I am just so emotionally invested. Like, part of me wants Curtis to be acquitted because I want Desmond to have his dad. I don't want Trina to watch her father get hauled off in handcuffs. But another part of me, the part that actually cares about consequences, thinks Curtis absolutely deserves to go to prison. You can't just shatter a man's hand and ruin his life because you got jealous and protective. Actions have to have consequences, even for our favorite character. If Curtis walks free, what does that say to Isaiah? What justice does he get? And let's talk about Portia first. Portia is sitting right in the middle of this powder keg. She is the catalyst. I'm sorry, but Portia's history of deception is the ghost haunting this entire trial. If she hadn't lied about Trina's paternity for 2 decades, maybe Curtis wouldn't have this deep-seated irrational terror of being replaced. Maybe he would have had the emotional security to handle Isaiah feeling the baby kick without turning into a violent maniac. Portia's past actions created the fragile psychology that led Curtis to throw that punch. She has to sit in that courtroom and watch the 2 men she cares about tear each other to shreds, and she bears a huge chunk of the responsibility for why they are there in the first place. And let's not forget, the criminal trial is only half the battle. Isaiah has officially retained Rick Lansing to launch a massive civil suit against Curtis. Rick Lansing. Do you know how toxic and relentless Rick can be? If Martin somehow gets Curtis an acquittal in criminal court, Rick is going to bleed Curtis dry in civil court. Curtis's pride is literally going to bankrupt him. So even if he beats the prison sentence, he is going to lose everything else. There is no winning here. Curtis rejected a plea deal that would have saved his finances and minimized his time away, all because he couldn't stand the thought of Isaiah playing. Whatever happens, this trial is going to fundamentally change the Ashford. If Curtis goes to prison, Portia is going to be left raising Desmond with Isaiah, which is exactly what Curtis was trying to prevent. It will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if Curtis is acquitted, the tension between him, Portia, and Isaiah is only going to escalate into something even more dangerous.